I call this next section common sense items because they're all things that we intuitively know but sometimes lose sight of, so they're important to go over. So item number one is this is a college class, which is obvious, but you'd be surprised at how often students comment that the class should have been easier or only that material that was on the test or directly related to the project should have been covered. No, it's not a correspondence class. It's not a weekend seminar. It's a college level class. Critical thinking is an essential part of any college level course. If you learn critical thinking while you're at college, it will help you in numerous ways in your life. It's one of the reasons that many jobs that don't really need a specialized degree still require one. So what the company that's looking to hire you thinks that if you've been through 2 or 4 years of college, then you're going to be a better thinker. You're going to know how to take a project from A to Z, rather than them having to tell you first you do A to B, then come back to me, and then you do B to C. That wastes a lot of their time. They want someone who can take information from them, make it their own, and run with the project. So if you're not developing critical thinking while you're taking a college level class, then something is wrong. Critical thinking in a nutshell is consuming information, then being able to use that information, whether it's to answer a deep-rooted question in a philosophy exam, or in our case, to learn how to design by picking up skills from one project and then applying them to the next project, and then later on applying them to projects in your actual work. In other words, being able to take that knowledge that you just acquired and make it your own. So that brings us to a test question. This is a college level class that requires critical thinking. Item number 2, life is not fair. We all think we know this, but I'm surprised how often I hear students say things like, "Oh, that's not fair. She came up with that design in 2 minutes and I've been working for 40 hours on mine and it's nowhere near as nice as hers." Or, "That's not fair. He can read 5 chapters in a history book in like 5 or 25 minutes and be ready for a test." No, life is not fair. We all learn at different rates. The beautiful news, though, is now with video learning, just about anyone can learn things that are important to her or him. You might have to watch the video over and over again, and I've talked about different ways of working with the videos in the last welcome video. One of the examples I use is Ryan Reynolds. He's a good-looking guy. He's funny. He can act. And then there's the rest of us that can't do any of those things and are having a hard time learning the skill that we want to do for the rest of our life. So no, life is not fair. Some people get it in piles, and the rest of us have to work for it. But as long as we understand that, we can get what we want. Now, a side note, I will make our class as fair to each and every student as humanly possible. I use very uniform grading. I do not round up the grades at the end of the semester so that the student who was like solidly in an A all semester, to me, they get an A grade, not someone who was at like an 88 all semester. That's a B, and that at the end of the semester will still remain a B. Now, we all are going to be accepting of each other's differences. Diversity is what makes America great. You're in a free country, enjoy it. Quiz question. Life is not fair. One example is that we all learn at different rates. I believe video learning really allows those who want it bad enough to learn just about anything. This may mean that you have to watch the instructional video multiple times. Now, this next one's a tough one for some students to understand. You're either in or you're out. And I'm trying to find like a pleasant way to say this and make everyone understand it. But if you cannot be present for the class, then you're not going to have a good experience. You're not going to get what you need out of the class. And by present, I don't mean necessarily that you're physically present in an in-classroom class. I mean that you're mentally giving the class all that you need to. So you need to be present physically and or mentally, mostly mentally. You need to block out large chunks of time on your calendar for this class. If you don't have the time for this class, then you're not going to be present mentally for this class. Your grade and your ability to get what you need out of this class is going to be affected. The typical math formula for a college class is 3 hours per unit. So most likely right now you're signed up for a 3-unit class. That means you need to block out at least 9 hours each week to do your classwork, assuming that it's a full length 16 to 17 week class. If it's accelerated, then you have to block out even more time. The biggest problem I see as an instructor is students just trying to wing an assignment. They hear a little bit about it in the video, and then they stop watching the video and they just jump right to the assignment without getting all of the instruction. If you don't have the time to read and fully understand the instructions for each assignment and do it properly, then what's the point? If it's not by the instructions, I can't give you a decent grade for it. And I've developed rubrics for most assignments, so you'll see what I'm grading at. But if you don't have the time to look at the instructions, look at the rubric, then you may as well just not do it. Take the class when you have time. So put aside enough time to understand the assignment, enough time to execute the assignment, enough time to really look at those instructions both before you start and along the way, and look at the rubric if the one's available before you turn in the assignment. And I'm going to show you what I think is like an almost foolproof way to never lose silly points on an assignment. So here's the technique I want you to use. Take the instructions, make a screenshot of them. If you're using a mobile device, you probably know how to do that on your mobile device. If you're using a PC, just Google how to do it for the software that you have. I can tell you that for years on a Mac, it's just been Command-Shift-4. You get these little crosshairs, you drag them, get the instructions. Now that'll be on my desktop. And what I'm going to do is open that in a program that I can mark it up. So I'm sure you can find some kind of app that you can do that. Photoshop is a good one. Most of you are taking classes that require the Creative Suite anyway. Now when I find that screenshot, or shots if it's a lot of instructions, I'm going to go ahead and open that in the program, which in my case here, I'm just going to do it with Photoshop. So let me just right click on there, open with Photoshop. And then come up with a color coding system. Like if you scratch through it in red, that means you did it, you're done. If it's something that you got to remember to do, then maybe underline it in yellow. So let's just say in this example, I've read the instructions and I realize I can't do this part until I do something first, but I definitely want to remember that. So I'll click on the color in here. I'll pick yellow. That's going to be my reminder color. I'll hit B for brush. I'll use my left and right bracket keys to make my brush the right size. And then I'm just going to, may take me a couple tries here with my mouse, but I'm going to underline that. Then let's say I'm a couple hours into the project and I've done this, this, and this. Then I can switch to red. And I can say, okay, I have done that. So I'm either going to put a cross through it or a check mark in front of it. Then I would go ahead and save that when I'm done working for the day. The next time I get ready to work, I'm going to open this up. And then when I can go through that entire block of instructions and everything has a red check mark in front of it, then I know I didn't miss anything that's going to cause me to get a bad grade. But again, it all comes back to making time. Now, if you can't figure out an electronic means of doing this, just do it, with old-fashioned way. If you can print it out, fine. If not, write it down, pen and paper, and cross things off as you need to, or at least make a list of things that you don't want to forget. And then before you're ready to turn the project in, if there's a rubric, read every one of these statements, because these are the things that are going through my head as I grade your paper. So I like to say, stack the deck in your favor. Don't give me any reason to take points off, and you're going to learn a lot more, have a much better experience, and get a higher grade in the class. So be present. Believe that you deserve to do well in the class. It's your class. You signed up for it. You're paying for it one way or another. Ask questions if you don't understand something. You deserve to have your question answered. If you cannot be present and give the class the time that it requires, then you either need to drop the class or change your situation. Now, bad things happen sometimes to good people. So if you're experiencing a mental illness, you have to deal with that. Now, if it's real serious, you're thinking of suicide or whatever, dial 911. Get the help that you need. If you can get it from student services, great. Personal doctor, great. If you can't figure out where to go for help, ask me. But if you're asking me by email, you'd be better off to hurry up and figure out a better way to do it than waiting for a response from an instructor. So there's a difference between an excused absence, which we'll talk about how they apply to your class in a bit, and just not being present. So if you get an excused absence from a doctor, that means you have a verified excuse, and that when you return to being able to study, you're going to make up for the time that you missed. Now, if you are unfortunate enough to get in a car accident and you're in traction for the whole semester and you just can't do what you need to do to pass the class, then unfortunately you drop the class and you take it again next semester. That's just, life is not fair. Sometimes we have a bad semester. Respectfully, and please, do not send me really long emails documenting all the things that are wrong in your life. I'm here to help you with the class. Other than referring you to the options that we've talked about above, I can't help you in your personal life. And I'm being really sincere here. I feel for you, but it goes back to life is not fair. Sometimes we just simply have to retake the class if we can't get the information that we need from it. It would be very wrong for me to just say, man, I really understand what you're going through. Why don't you just skip 3 assignments and then that way, you can get caught up. No, that's wrong. You're not getting what you need out of the class. Now, when you are present and you make enough time for the class, then the grades really just take care of themselves. I've seen comments from students saying that the grading was very strict for a beginning whatever class. However, if the student really understood, they would realize that they lost points not because the work produced was not good enough for a beginning class, but just simply because they didn't follow the instructions, which are important whether it's a beginning class, intermediate, advanced, or you're actually out there working. All right, quiz question. If your personal life gets in the way this semester, even if it's not your fault, you may simply have to drop the class and take it again in the future. All right, let's move on to something a little more positive. So let me just tell you some more about teaching learning philosophies that I have. I enjoy being a college professor. I would not do it otherwise. And here's just a little tidbit that I learned years ago, read in a book, that you either do what you love or learn to love what you do. You owe that to yourself. So let that become one of your life philosophies. I want both you and me to have a positive experience this semester. And one of the ways I'm proving that to you is by documenting this stuff in video so that we have our agreement here. My philosophy of the class environment, which may be virtual, is that when we are working towards completing a task, I want you to feel like the class is a design studio. I'm not your boss. I'm more like your creative director. We're all working together and helping each other become better designers or animators or just students, depending on what the class is. Call me Steve. You don't have to call me Professor. And the only time I want you to think of me any differently is when an assignment is due. But even then, I don't want you to think of me as like, oh, this mean professor that's out to get me and take points away from me. But rather think of it in a common sense term. Think of me as your client that you're doing work for or an assignment for. And your client expects you to do the work, do it correctly per the instructions they give you, and turn it in on time. The lucky thing is that if the work is less than perfect or it's late, you don't immediately get fired or lose a client or lose money. You just simply lose points. And again, grading's coming up. Please don't try to work me. I'm happy to answer your questions. I enjoy helping people out. But if you're asking me questions to try to work information out of me that was in an assignment that you were supposed to do before that class, I find that disrespectful and insulting, and it's unfair for me to spend time with you when I could be helping the students that did come to class prepared and just are trying to make their work better. So, for example, I would not make a 15-minute video to explain a topic that I could just simply show you in Zoom or in class in 5 minutes. In fact, the opposite is much closer to the truth. I find that what I can explain in a 15-minute video probably takes 25 to 45 minutes or longer in class because of the setup time and then having to stop and pause and let students try it out and accounting for the different learning rates. Now, if you watch the videos and you take notes on them, I'll help you out as much as possible. In the next video, we'll delve into the syllabus.